You are now listening to the number one podcast.
You have been digitally interrupted.
Mr. I am digital.
Yes, y'all already know what it is, man. It's another episode of Digitally Interrupted, and it's your boy, as you already know, Mr. I am Digital. And today we're gonna have a special podcast today, man, because there's definitely something going down this Saturday. We're going to say 12/12 because that's this Saturday. It's definitely going down. Ashanti versus Keyshia Cole. Yeah, what? I know. Yes, that's litty. It's really litty because, first of all, we're going to celebrate both women on their success in this music industry because we know that it's been a very crazy industry for the past 10 to 15 years. And, they definitely put their staple in and they definitely did what they had to do to maintain that notoriety, to maintain that activity, to also maintain to keep people listening, man. Whether it was inside the music or out in the tabloids, if there were any, in the media, they definitely held themselves down and held themselves accordingly. So we definitely want to give a round of applause to those ladies. All right, and let's start. So first of all, I'm not going to really give my insight on who I'm picking first off, because I definitely want to just talk about both women in their own context. I definitely want to give them both their props individually. And then I definitely want to talk about what they've done as a collective of two females in this industry. And then at the end of this podcast, I'm going to definitely tell you guys who I'm going to side with in this battle. But it's not really a battle. It's just both giving women their flowers, just giving both of them their flowers and celebrating their music and celebrating their careers, man. So, we'll start with Ashanti. Everybody, I know a lot of people have their sides, and, I'm definitely going to give some facts on why some people would choose Ashanti. And, let's start from the top. So Ashanti, a lot of people have not talked about it, but I know a lot of people will say 2002 is when they discovered Ashanti. I'm going to say 2001-ish. 2002, 2001-ish is like when I discovered her, which was before April, before The Foolish. And this was because I heard her on the late and great Big Pun song, How We Roll. So this is when I first heard of Ashanti. I didn't even know what her name was because I think when I first heard the record, I didn't even see her name as a feature on the record because I think I heard it on a mixtape. It might have been a Hot 97 mixtape. I know Hot 97 was throwing these mixtapes out between 2000 and 2008, 2009. They was throwing out a lot of mixtapes. And I think that was the first time I ever heard Ashanti, which was How We Roll. If you ever get a chance to, I think if you go on YouTube, you can definitely YouTube How We Roll with Big Pun. And that was the first time I ever heard of Ashanti. That might been an introduction record of her and just kind of Pun putting her in a position where it was her time to kind of introduce herself and introduce her voice. And then, of course, everybody kind of met her on Foolish. Hey, everybody has the different time they meet artists, in with music, whether it's through the radio or whether, it's through mixtapes or whatnot. And I know at that time, it was definitely a mixtape era, which introduced us to a lot of artists that we never knew of or never heard of. Mixtapes definitely buzzed a lot of artists to where they were. Ashanti has had the accomplishments of 18 songs appearing on Billboard. 10 of them were 10 top hits. And then she's had 2 number 1 hits. And those number 1 hits were Foolish and Always on Time with Ja Rule. Most of you guys know that, Ashanti at that time in 2002, she was buzzing crazy and she was going bananas and doing her thing. And, we definitely kind of put her together with Ja Rule, but Ashanti definitely had her own lane and her own sound. And, she definitely maintained that. Definitely off the first album, she definitely solidified who she was. I know a lot of people have always slandered that Ashanti couldn't sing or she couldn't hold a note. And that's actually far from the truth. Ashanti has done a lot of versatile records where she's had to vocally do her thing in different aspects. So I'm definitely never going to say that she can't sing, neither Keyshia. And, people will always side with Keyshia over Ashanti vocal wise because Ashanti was that young woman who was maintaining her thing in the party scene. I always say that Ashanti and Keyshia were two different times for a lot of people where I know I kind of came across Ashanti when I was about 15 years old. So I was freshman in high school. A lot of us were in party mode. We were young. We loved to party. So a lot of the music that I kind of came across with Ashanti was a lot of party music. It was upbeat. It was very dope. And, with Foolish, she definitely was giving females that confidence where it was like, don't let no man fool you or do you crazy, like hold your own. And that was dope. And Keyshia came out at a time in 2005 where I was graduating high school, and so graduating high school at that time, that's a lot of time where everybody's kind of like breaking up with their first loves. And some people are actually running into their first loves. If you're going to freshman of college, you finding somebody for the first time. And it's crazy because Keyshia was definitely, she was here, and she made it clear, females, you got this. She gave females that confidence to come out of their heartbreaks and actually do what they had to do. But jumping back to the accomplishments of Ashanti, we're going to name these songs that were on the billboards for Ashanti. You got Foolish, What's Love with Fat Joe. We got Ja Rule, Always on Time. Into You. Now, Into You was one of those records where it was kind of like everybody didn't know whether it was Tamia or Ashanti, but I know Fab had actually tapped in on that story and explained that I believe Tamia had she had surgery on her throat. So for some reason, Ashanti ended up on the record. But when you do listen to Into You, it's going to always be that featuring Tamia or Ashanti. Then you got Happy, we got Baby, Rock With You, Rain On Me, Southside with Lloyd, Wonderful with Ja Rule, Down For You, which actually featured Ja Rule, Ashanti, Charlie Baltimore, and Vita. Mesmerized with Ja Rule, Only You, The Way That I Love You, Body On Me with Nelly and Akon, Nasty, which was actually recent with The Baby and Megan Thee Stallion, and Plies, Want It, Need It. And then we have the last record of Start This Ish Off Right with Lil Wayne and Mac Main. So these are the records that were on the billboard that Ashanti was attached to, some as a single artist and some more with her feature record, her being featured on the record actually. So her top 10s, I mean, we can go with the top 10s where it's a lot of them, but if you guys want, go check on billboard.com. You can get that information on the top 10s. But the two number ones was Foolish and Always on Time. We're going to go over on to Keyshia Cole now. So Keyshia, I want to say Keyshia came on, I want to say 2005. And I don't remember exactly what record it was that actually caught my ear to listen to Keyshia. But I think I'm going to say... I'm going to say maybe I Should Have Cheated might be the record. That might be the record. I might say that might have introduced me to Keyshia and actually sit and listen to her. But yeah, so Keyshia, her music history, she has 15 songs that hit the billboard, but only 3 of them were top 10s. Those 3 were Let It Go with Missy and Lil Kim. We got When You Gonna Give It To Me with Sean Paul, and Last Night with Diddy. So the rest of the songs that are on the billboard though is Shoulda Let You Go, Heaven Sent, I Remember, Love, I Should Have Cheated, Trust, Play Your Cards Right with Tupac, I Changed My Mind with Shine, You Complete Me, Enough of No Love with Lil Wayne, Boyfriend Girlfriend with Seaside, and Game's Pain with The Game. So when you put these women together on paper, we might just look at numbers. If we're playing numbers, then Ashanti's going to have the upper hand on Keyshia, also because Ashanti was also more active than Keyshia, and she had more activity than Keyshia, and Ashanti kind of came in early. She came in at a time where, like I said, mixtapes was the big thing. They were buzzing. Keyshia came in right at the tail end of where mixtapes were kind of fizzling out. Everything was kind of starting to move to the streaming game, with MySpace and, iTunes were becoming more popular, but both these women still managed to do a lot of numbers in that realm of where they were going musically. Now, speaking of songs that stuck with me, Ashanti, I'm going to say my favorite song was and had to be Into You because I think that song was just, I thought that song was just beautifully put together. But I know that's kind of a back and forth because, you know, sometimes we hear Tamia and sometimes we hear Ashanti. So after that, I'm going to say that the next song that was really dope for me was Southside. I know it sounds very, very soft for me, but it was a very, very dope song. I love Southside. I thought it was dope, especially what she did with Lloyd and the visual. It was dope. Single record wise, I'm going to say maybe, I'm going to go with, I'm going to say, we can go between Foolish and Rock With You, but I think Rock With You was really dope. I just love the vibe on Rock With You. I think the way that record starts, I think everything was just dope in that record. Now with Keyshia, the one song that stuck with me is going to probably have to be, I'm going to say I Should Have Cheated. Probably was one of the best songs. I think that stuck with me with Keyshia. Feature wise, obviously, I think Last Night was a very sonically dope song that was put together with Diddy. And that was one of the songs that stuck with me, you know, in her career. Now what separates them from each other is, I think vocals is going to be the one thing that people are going to always compete these women with, because vocally they both are in there. I think they have their own pockets. And I think that's the beauty of these women going against each other. We're not going to hear the same records. We're not going to hear the same sounds. We're not going to hear the same voices. Like, they both are very distinguished and distinct in their own way. And I think that's what makes them both great as artists. You know, artists, what makes you great as an artist individually is when you can be individual and you can be, you know, distinct and everybody can tell you apart from somebody. And both these women have accomplished that as women in their own way. The audience for these women, I'm going to say their audiences are very, they're very up and down, because a lot of their audience is women. And, you know, women have, I'm going to say that a lot of women listen to music in their mood. It depends on their mood a lot, men as well, but women also tend to look for inspiration in music, and especially from other, you know, women artists. Like, they look for that type of inspiration in that music. So, you know, obviously a lot of women that listen to Keyshia, you know, they've probably gone through something in a relationship and they just needed that confidence to, you know, just be themselves and just become who they are as women in their relationships and just be that strong woman. And Ashanti, you know, she had records for women, you know, that were just, you know, I think Ashanti's voice was very, you know, party songish. She had some ballads, you know, but, you know, I just think Ashanti had her own audience, and the audience she had was kind of those who like to party. A lot of the songs that, you know, she came out with were very upbeat, up-tempo. You know, Keyshia came out with some up-tempo, upbeats, but she also had a lot of ballads, and a lot of people like to refer to Keyshia as the millennial Mary J. Blige, and I can definitely see why in that aspect. Now, when it comes to saying, like, quote unquote a win, I believe both women can win in their own ways, because it's all preference. Like, I won't ever argue with women about how they feel about both these artists, because either artist, it's all based off preference. Like, it's all dependent on who you prefer to be the winner. Like, it's a preference thing. Like, you know, like I said, everybody had their different reasons for rocking with Keyshia and rocking with Ashanti. Like, that was their own thing. You know, Ashanti was active, man. Like, you know, and she, you know, she dated Nelly, I think, between 2002 and 2008. That was like one of those big things. And, you know, Keyshia had her relationships. And, you know, I always like to say that, you know, Keyshia's relationships, you know, in and out of the media definitely gave her a great advantage when it came down to getting her music out there, because her music was so inspirational that when you heard stories in the media of her relationship and everything that went wrong, it just kind of showed women that, hey, listen, what she's speaking about is real. Like, she's not going to sit up here and sugarcoat like what she's putting into these songs and this music. She loves what she does, and she's also not going to lie to you in her music. And I think that's a big thing when Keyshia was out and being active. I think that was the biggest thing, that she was authentic with everything that she was singing to. So that was a very, very, great thing for her to do. And I think that's why she could win, is because, she speaks more emotionally to women. Ashanti does as well, but Ashanti's music, like I said, was very upbeat, up-tempo, and a lot of the songs that people remember Ashanti for was very up-tempo. And Keyshia was one of those that people remembered being soulful and just hitting you in a certain way where emotionally you had to run it back a couple times, because some women like to cry to music, and they needed to run it back because they had to hear that 2 or 3 times just so that they could feel it, and get through it. Like I said, once again, it's a big celebration on Saturday for both these women. I really loved both of them as artists. I really loved what they did and what they brought to the game, the talent, the shows. I think the only person I really saw in person perform was Ashanti. That was definitely a vibe. I haven't had the opportunity to see Keyshia perform. I hope maybe one day, I'll get to see her perform in person. But from what I've saw on videos and stuff like that, both these women bring a energy and a presence to the stage, and they definitely stick to their audience. They definitely know how to talk to their audience, and they definitely know how to keep their audience intrigued. I believe both these women haven't been typically active. I want to say, I think Ashanti has been the only one that's she's probably been active as of recent, but I think the last record, Ashanti she was featured on a record with DaBaby, and Keyshia Cole has a record with Kehlani that was in 2019. So since 2019, 2020, both these women have been getting back into the swing of things, because I think 2014 was probably the last time we really heard from both women, but they really came back around 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. They've been active. So they definitely haven't left. They definitely been doing their thing. I definitely love what they've done as artists in 2019 and 2020 on their features. They still sound great. They still look great. I know a lot of people will say, I'm watching the Verzuz just to see how both women look. And I know that's kind of the man thing, and women are just like, hey, I want to hear the hits. I want to hear these women sing. But, everybody has their preference. I think it's going to be a dope Verzuz. I think it's going to be a dope event that we're going to be able to watch. We're going to be able to witness. I don't think we're ever going to see something like this, for a while. I know basically Verzuz have been, pretty much male dominant right now lately, but with two artists like Ashanti and Keyshia Cole, just they audiences, they grew up, we kind of grew up with Ashanti and Keyshia, in a sense. And, there's a lot of artists that can't really say that they've had that with their audience, that a lot of these audience have grown up with these women and they still listen to these women and they still will love to support these women in whatever they put out and whatever projects they put out. I am going to say that, I am unbiased to both, but if I had to choose, I'm definitely going to go team Ashanti on this one.
You are now listening to the #1 podcast.
You have been digitally interrupted.
Mr. I am digital.